Good afternoon, everyone. I believe we are now live. My name is Chuck Davidson. I'm the president and CEO of the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce and also the board chair for the Manitoba Mineral Development Fund. I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon, where we can talk a little bit more about Mmdf, some of the initiatives that help you to learn more about what Mmdf is, how it can help with Northern economic development, and how you can potentially apply for some of the programs that we have under this program. Before we get beginning, though, I would like to acknowledge that the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce and MMDF acknowledge we live and work in the territories of the Anishinaabe, the Creek, the Dakota, the Dene, the Métis, and the Oji-Cree nations. Our office sits in Treaty 1 territory, the ancestral and traditional homeland of the Anishinaabe peoples. Today, in addition to hearing about the MMDF, we will hear from Alamos Gold, the Thompson Community Development Corporation on their projects, along with CEDF on their supports and services that their organizations can offer to applicants. So just to give you a bit of a sense as to what MMDF is and how this all came about, this is an initiative that the province of Manitoba and the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce began almost 2 years ago in regards to developing an economic development fund that can help specifically on economic development and mining projects throughout Northern Manitoba. As part of that initial allocation, we have been provided with a $20 million fund, and Jessica Ferris, our organizer and manager of the program, will talk a little bit more about that fund and how it's administered, and when developed, how we can really utilize that to move forward. So we actually had the ability to launch the fund right in the middle of the pandemic in July of 2020. And since that time, we've been able to approve approximately $2.4 million worth of projects on various economic development and mining projects throughout Northern Manitoba, which has been a huge benefit. Just to kind of give you an overview as well, we are governed by a board of directors, so we are separate from the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce, a separate board of directors made up of myself as chair, Kevin Plogman from Fort Group, who also sits on the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce board of directors, Darren Downey from Gardwine, the CEO of Gardwine, also a Manitoba Chamber of Commerce board member. In addition, we also have Colleen Smook, the mayor of Thompson, sits on our board, and Richard Trudeau from Hudbay and representing the Mining Association. And one of the smartest things that I ever did with MMDF was hiring Jessica Ferris, who is our program manager. And so with that, I will turn the stage over to Jessica Ferris. She will walk through the program with some assistance from Cal Huntley and talk to you a little bit more about MMDF, what it is. We will have an opportunity after the presentations for some questions. The way that we would prefer to do the questions, if you want to use the chat function on the Zoom, you'll see it's on the bottom. Just type in your questions in the chat function and I will respond to them or steer them to the right person. So that's the easiest way to do that. And again, we thank everyone for taking part in this discussion. It will be recorded as well. So we will keep this on our website, which is also attached to the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce. And with that, I'll stop talking and I'll pass it over to Jessica Ferris. Jessica?
Thanks so much, Chuck, for that great introduction on MMDF. And thank you, everyone, for sharing your lunch hour with us today. So today I'll provide a little bit of background on the program, talk more about the program guidelines, and walk through the application process. And then I'll have Cal Huntley, our chair of the Application Review Committee, talk a bit more about the approval process and what the committee is looking for in successful projects. So to provide some background, MMDF is a Northern Economic Development Fund with a focus on mining that Chuck kind of touched on earlier. So we funded a range of mineral exploration projects and economic development projects so far, and we're certainly excited to do more this year. We're a $20 million provincial fund that's administered by the Chamber of Commerce, and we can approve up to $2 million annually in grant funding for a variety of projects. Generally speaking, we provide up to $50,000 in grants towards short-term projects and up to $300,000 towards longer-term projects. So what we're hoping to achieve with MMDF and through the projects that we support is to increase economic partnerships between Indigenous communities and the mining industry, build capacity in local communities and businesses to increase engagement in economic development, create and maintain short and long-term employment opportunities, diversify regional economies, particularly in communities that are vulnerable to some of the fluctuations in the mining industry, and then also stimulate investment in the mining industry. So a lot of big goals for MMDF, but I'm really encouraged with some of the great projects that we've seen so far in kind of fulfilling this mandate. So who can apply and what types of projects are eligible? Eligible recipients under the program include Indigenous communities or organizations, municipalities, and for-profit or not-for-profit organizations. And our eligibility for projects is fairly broad. We can fund any economic development project that's located in northern Manitoba, or if it's outside of the northern region, the project must relate to mining. So in terms of our application process, what's really nice about our program is applications are received on a rolling basis, and we review projects for approval on a monthly basis as well. So this offers a lot of flexibility to applicants and project proponents that have a lot of varying timelines and deadlines and want to get moving on their project at different stages. So the way the application process looks is it kind of happens in 3 phases. First, the application is submitted in accordance with the appropriate form. And again, please contact myself or our other great staff member, Matt Banger, who will assist you with filling out the appropriate form. We provide feedback on the draft application. And then once the project is ready to be reviewed by the committee, then it comes before the committee and then the board for final approval. And again, Mayor Huntley will talk a little bit more about the application review committee stage in just a moment here. After, if the project is approved, then we kind of move into the agreement and monitoring phase. So we would enter into a contribution agreement with the proponent, and that agreement would outline a schedule for project monitoring. And typically our grants are issued based on the project performance in installments. So on that note, I will pass the floor to the Mayor of Flin Flon, Cal Huntley. He is also the chair of our application review committee and has been great in steering the discussion on a lot of these projects. So Cal, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Jessica, and welcome to everybody today. The application review committee that makes, as Jessica has pointed out, makes a recommendation to the board, and the board determines the final direction where it goes. What I'd really like to comment on initially is the application review committee itself. I feel very privileged to chair a board with the depth of knowledge and experience in the North to help make recommendations on the various projects that we get. And if I can, I'm going to do it anyways. I'm just going to give you a brief summary of the members on the board. So myself, of course, I'm the Mayor of Flin Flon, as well as a Human Resource Superintendent at Hud Bay, and I'm also the chair of the Northern Regional Health Authority. And I've lived my whole life virtually in the North, other than for education. My vice chair, Kathy Valentino, is a city councillor with the city of Thompson, and she is also a Northern rep on the executive for the Association of Manitoba Municipalities. Again, huge depth of knowledge with regards to the North. Then we have Ron Evans, who I'm sure everyone knows, a former chief of Norway House and former Grand Chief of Manitoba, and his insights and direction in discussions around these projects are invaluable. Follow that up with Becky Chinfloney, who is the manager of Greenstone Community Futures, and as well is on the board of directors of Look North, and heavily engaged in economic development for Northern Manitoba, more specific Northern provincially with regards to the Look North board, and then certainly in the Flin Flon, Snow Lake, Cranberry region for Greenstone Community Futures. So again, a wealth of knowledge and good connections. Rob Penner, another one of our board members, Associate VP of Community and Industrial Solutions at UCN, and he's the former Executive Director of the Manitoba Mining Academy, situated in Flin Flon. Then we have Lyle Sanfernetz. He's the Manager of Health and Safety and Risk at Valet in Thompson, and he also chairs the MAMI board, which is the Mining Association of Manitoba. And last but not least, Brian Ross, a colleague and friend who's recently retired. He's a former VP of the Gardewine Group LP and was manager of supply chain at Hudbay, so understands many of the challenges that are tied to the North when larger initiatives and projects are looked at. So I feel very privileged to be fronting a board of that caliber, and I'm hoping we're making good recommendations to the board. And you know, when clarifications are needed, this group picks it out, and we go back to the projects and ask for those clarifications. So it's a very fulsome process. So the review committee, after discussion on the project, makes a recommendation to the board for approval. When the committee is discussing projects, we consider the selection criteria established in the program guidelines with a focus on the context and impact of the project. The context is important in terms of the project's location, support partnerships with the surrounding community, and opportunities for further ongoing collaboration. Successful projects typically demonstrate a clear return on investment, clear economic outcomes, and benefits to the community or region. And I'm going to add as well that on our committee, you're always looking for what will this project bring for further opportunities. And it's a key consideration in moving forward. We also take into consideration the sustainability of the project long-term and often ask, will this project extend past the end date of the project? Or will this project continue after MMDF support ends? So does it become self-sustaining and perpetuates itself? That's always very attractive. We don't see ourselves as a funder for the term of a project if it's to be a service that's being provided in perpetuity. That's not the purpose of the board. Some examples of projects that have been approved include exploration projects in strategic locations and a range of economic development projects, including the two projects we will hear from today, the Marcel Coulomb First Nations and the Thompson Community Development Corps. More information on our approved projects can certainly be found on our website, and I believe the link's been included as well too. So that's the quick and dirty with regards to the application review committee. As I said before, we believe we're providing some really good recommendations and guidance to the formal board. And for the most part, the recommendations that we've provided, I think, have been taken on board. So I'm very pleased with that. And like I say, I can't say enough about the board itself and commitment to the North and commitment to economic development and partnerships and opportunities. I think, Jessica, hopefully I didn't talk too fast, but I needed to cover what I needed to cover. So I think I can pass it back over to you now.
That was great. Thank you so much, Mayor Huntley, for providing an inside look into what goes into the decision-making process for projects with MMDF. So now we'll move on to some project presentations. First, I have Marcel Coulomb First Nations, a really interesting project. I have Michael Race, the manager of Environment and Community Relations at Alamos Gold for their Lynn Lake Gold project, as well as Ernest Maristry, who is the project leader for this particular project. This is a land-based youth development initiative that is a partnership, again, between Marcel Coulomb First Nation and Alamos. So I will pass this off to Michael and let him share more about this fantastic project.
Welcome, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. With me, as you mentioned, is Ernest Maristry as well, who is going to be able to share a lot of insights of this project. I'm going to turn off my camera just because of my internet connection, but I will continue with the presentation here. So I'm just trying to load this presentation here. Share. Does everyone see the presentation? I'm assuming as much, hopefully.
It's still
again, oh, okay.
Good, we can see it.
So in the meantime, okay, perfect. In the meantime, I would like to acknowledge that the Chief and Council supposed to be present and actually doing this presentation. Unfortunately, they were not able to attend last minute. And I just want to include they want to give thanks to be able to be part of this program, and definitely wanted me to tell everyone about that as well. I will try to do my best to represent this partnership project as good as possible, and maybe just start at the beginning to give a little bit of feedback how the application process was for us. Again, Jessica, you were a huge help throughout this process, and we were able to go back and forth and get clarifications, and through the recommendations from the committee and the board, we were able to adjust the application to fit the criteria. We're also really pleased to see that the board and the committee is recognizing our local challenges with regards to wellness issues, etc., and was flexible to consider such circumstances. So with that said, I would like to just go through the quick presentation, a couple slides, showing you some impressions about the land-based youth development project, which includes the first project, the Chappelle Lake project. I hope it's gonna slide here. Okay, perfect. I'm just gonna give 2 seconds and hopefully it's loading up for everyone. So here I just wanna kind of give an overview that the project, the Chappelle Lake project, is to build a new trail, hopefully all-season trail to Chappelle Lake, which is northwest along the border of the reserve, the Black Sturgeon Reserve of Marcel Colomb First Nation. And it also includes the construction of a cabin at Chappelle Lake. This and future projects will be the foundation for future traditional land-based and use-based development activities. And it's one of the first of a suite of planned projects to address capacity building in the community for youth, to be acknowledging and working on the process of reconciliation. It's going to give us the opportunity to work together with Marcel Colomb First Nation and take part in traditional culture days, etc. And these land-based trainings will help with building capacity to manage said wellness issues and hardship addiction issues as well. So I just at this point I quickly gonna pass it along to Ernest, who could give a bit of an outlook on how this land-based training could look like. And I just also want to emphasize that through the process of building the cabin and the trails, there's lots of skills already brought from elders down to the youth. So I'm just passing at this point over to Ernest quick.
Nancy, how are you guys? Did you guys get that?
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
Okay, anyways, in terms of this project, you know, I see as a First Nation coming from the foundation of where these problems are from. I would like to, like in terms of our youth, I'd like to see them or us as the leaders build a portfolio for our people to follow so that they can teach the youth these land-based activities that they would encounter as they go about the land, so that they have knowledge of what they see, so that they're not looking blindly into the bush, you know, and not knowing what is what, you know, and having these in having this portfolio, it'll give the people a foundation of what to teach. And not only that, it'll give our youth, we will be planting seeds inside of our youth for them to carry on throughout their life, to lead a more positive lifestyle in terms of trying to get them away of all the social issues that we're encountering right now, and all the negative social issues I'm talking about. So in terms of this project, in terms of the land-based teachings that we're trying to get going here, it'll benefit the youth in the long run throughout their life, and the foundations that they're gonna get from this, they'll be able to give these foundations to their children, providing a positive cycle for creating a cycle for us to follow,
Okay, thank you. That's really valid, and it brings it back to the foundation of where we finally are. It is in a point where we can start with actual training programs. We try to create that foundation as a start of the future training programs as well. So this is just a project update where we at. In October 10th, we had our application approved. Throughout fall, we scouted the trails and flagged, tried to do as much upland locations for all year access. Ernest with his crew then went out and cleared the trail to Chappelle Lake, and we started moving some building material end of December to the build location. And then after a local outbreak of COVID and restriction is associated with that, we started the building the cab and hope to complete everything mid-April here. And I added at the bottom that there's going to be a next project. As I said, this is important to show that this is a sub-project of many projects to come that will facilitate for future benefits. So just moving along here, I'm just gonna pass it over to Ernest again. These are just a couple images throughout the journey of clearing the path, and on the right side you just see challenges of bringing building material to site as well. So there's a couple quotes from participants on the bottom, but I'll again pass it for some personal insights and actual insights to Ernest here.
I'm going to go back again to land-based trainings. During the cutting of the portage, I tracked a lot of animals, a lot of seen birds, the weather, it all affected me and gave me different messages of how to interpret the land, in terms of how to prepare myself for the land. When we were going through the portage, the youth, I mainly focused on safety out in the workplace, which was the bush is our workplace, and chainsaw maintenance. They did get a lot of knowledge through that during our work practice.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it was quite the challenge with the weather as well, etc. So I hope this kind of gives you an impression about the trail building a little bit. Here are some images about the cabin built and the activities around that. Just a little bit of overview and the landscape underneath. And then this is just showing the location of the cabin. Again, to end the slide deck, I definitely want to add a quote from Chief Colomb as well on the bottom that outlines the importance of this program and a project and how it will benefit the entire community build the foundations for future training and into employment programs, kind of thing. I will pass it back to Ernest for some final notes on how the landscape around this chosen location will benefit the project and help building capacity around. I would like to, from my side, already thank you for having this opportunity to share the project, and looking forward for working with Jessica and the board and the committee to soon apply for the next sub project. So I'm just passing for final notes back to Ernest again.
Okay, I'm going to speak on behalf of the youth again. In terms of looking at the land terrain of where the cabin was erected, there's one river coming in, one river going out, and then there's on the east side, there's another river that's just the main river. But where the cabin is situated, there's another lake there. There are sturgeon on the lake and a number of species that run up and down the river. But this is a very good place to set a foundation for our youth to learn in terms of land-based activity. And being a guide for 18 years, I strongly recommend that, you know, these youth have the opportunity to learn these things that are land-based, because it could eventually save their lives, you know. Not only that, it gives them direction.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any other big final notes, or are you you're good? Okay, thanks so much for taking your time, Ernest. I would like to pass it back to Jessica at that point. I don't know if you have any questions, and I hope I'm not hopefully we didn't take too much time away. And yeah, thanks again for your opportunity.
Thank you so much, Michael and Ernest, for sharing your insights and more about the project. This was one we were really excited about, and can't wait to see the lasting impact this has on youth in the community. So next we'll move on to the Thompson Community Development Corporation's project with Mmdf. I have Keisha Davis, the Economic Development Officer for the City of Thompson, on the line to share more about their project. Keisha?
Hello. Hi, everybody. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay. I'm sharing this screen. Could you confirm if you're seeing my PowerPoint?
Yep, we can see your presentation.
Okay, good. So I want to thank the team at Mmdf for inviting me and to present on the project. I'm going to share a little bit of background about the project, where we are now, and the process, how that Mmdf application process worked for me. So to get the ball rolling, I want to just share with you a little bit of background about the Thompson Community Development Corporation. This was established several years ago in the, I think, I don't want to misquote, but it was several years ago, and it was dissolved in 2015 because there wasn't adequate funding. Initially, the ballet in Thompson financially supported the operations of the Thompson CDC, but with downsizing happening over the years, the contribution to the Thompson CDC had also decreased over the years and ended up in it being dissolved in 2015. In 2020, a decision was made by council that the CDC needed to have been revived because there was an obvious gap for a standalone entity that was more community driven to kind of implement and push some of the economic development activities through that avenue. And so the process started with planning, which included several stakeholders in the community prior to it being revived in June of 2020. So once the revival happened, an interim board of council was put in place. They're still guiding and directing the operations of the CDC, which is supported by myself at the moment. The intent, and of course, it fed into the project goal that was submitted to MMDF, was to seek to ensure that the revival of the Thompson CDC was done in a sustainable way. It had a solid foundation going forward, because we didn't want to repeat history where the corporation starts again and then find itself in the same situation of being not able to sustain itself. And so when we heard about the MMDF, we saw that it was a good fit to reach out to MMDF to see how best we could partner to, work on this project. So the funding that was approved was 150,000, and that was approximately 43% of what the total project cost was. The implementation period was 1 year, and that is supposed to have started in March, so a month into the project, but I'll speak on that a little bit further. And some of the main project activities included the engagement of a CDC manager, because reminding everyone that the CDC was just revived. There was no bodies except myself as the administrator supporting the process. So engage a CDC manager, develop a sustainable business model or models that would create that foundation and that path, that map that would guide the financial sustainability of the CDC going forward. So for that, we hope to engage a consultant. And another activity was to support a land development process. So in recent times, we have found that individuals locally in Thompson are interested in buying lands for particular agricultural purposes and for residential purposes, but they wanted more larger lots. So we had rezoned some properties north of the Burntwood River to facilitate this kind of access to land. And so the project will help with that also. And then there's also website development, because again, CDC is restarting and we need to get our online presence. So those were the main activities that was submitted in our proposal, and that is what we will be undertaking for this project. Where we are now. So the funding agreement has been signed, that was signed in February. And then as it is now, we are working on some of our own internal issues to figure out how to get our bank access to our bank accounts, which was frozen for several years, as you can imagine. So we're working on that internally to get our first disbursement from MMDF. But in the interim, we've actually started some of the activities to get the project going. So let me just point out that we leveraged the approval, the funding approval that MMDF gave us to access additional funding for the CDC. And that I feel is a big win for Thompson, and it wouldn't maybe have been possible without us approaching other funding institutions and saying, look, MMDF has, committed, so we have that funding in place and we need additional support. So we did that and we got additional funding through CRED for the CDC. We haven't signed the agreement, but the approval has been received for that. So far we've started the process, as I mentioned, and we've advertised for CDC, the CDC management position, and we hope to shortlist and get somebody on board. The ad was placed a few weeks ago, and we're in the process of shortlisting currently. We have we're putting together various terms of reference to begin that engagement process for business consultant who will work on the business plan / models that we're hoping once the business models are identified, we at the CDC can, one, implement some of these smaller low-hanging fruit type business and hand that over to interested local, budding entrepreneurs, and also use it as a promotional tool to attract new investors into the community. So that's our idea in terms of the business models that we hope to develop. And of course, the land development specialist, we have a position for a short-term consultant that will drive the land development process. That has also been advertised, and we hope to get somebody on board soon. So that's pretty much where we are in terms of the activities so far. So the MMDF process, just want to really thank Jessica, because it was seamless for us on this side, in terms of, we sent her an email and the response time was great. She was very helpful with all the questions I had and so on. So in October 2020, I reached out to Jessica, and we had a few meetings in that same month. I pitched her the idea as to what we were hoping to do. And I think an important piece was that we wanted to do something that would ensure that we don't always have to be asking for funding for the CDC several years down the line. That the CDC, this is a model that we want to develop where the CDC can provide for its own operation, at least partially going forward. And so that, I think, was a big sell for us. But I pitched the idea to Jessica. She was on board. She liked the idea of the sustainable plan that we had for the organization. I submitted a draft. She gave feedback in November, submitted a draft. She gave quick feedback. And I suppose it was discussed at the board level at MMDF, and approval was received in 2020, December 2020. The timeline in January, because we had hoped that the project would have started in January 2021. This was not going to be possible, so we had asked for it to be pushed back to March. So that was something that we asked for in January 2021. I provided all the changes that she had requested in terms of implementation and so on. And then we were, I got an agreement, it signed off in February. And the project, as I mentioned before, was to have started in March. At this point, we've started some of the activities in terms of seeking advertising and seeking to engage somebody full time, and that's pretty much where we are with this project. But I think once we have hired the general manager for the CDC, things should progress a little bit faster, at a faster pace going forward. But yeah, that's pretty much where we are in terms of the Thompson CDC. And I want to again thank MMDF and the staff for supporting this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Keisha, for that great presentation. I know that this project was really exciting when it came across my desk, so I'm really looking forward to seeing this project move forward and the next stages for the Thompson Community Development Corporation. So last but not least, before we head into the question and answer period, I have Chris Thevenalt, the Chief Financial Officer for the Community's Economic Development Fund, on the line. And he's here to share more about their organization's role in Northern economic development and some of the support services that they might be able to provide to applicants that are working on a project. So Chris, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. So yeah, Chris Thevenot, CFO and Manager of Developmental Loans for CEDF. And today I'd just like to talk about how CEDF can support the MMDF, but I also want to quickly give you a little bit of context of what we've done in the past for other industries and a quick glimpse of one of our current projects that we are working on in the mining industry. So CEDF has, I'll just share the screen here quickly. CEDF's had a presence in the Northern Manitoba for over 45 years in different capacities. We've been involved in tourism, big presence in Churchill. We've been involved in forestry, critical to the Boboden logging operations, and currently heavily involved in the fishing industry in all corners, Norway House, Rocher, Grand Rapids. So we have a lot of experience in a wide array of northern industries. And we find, those industries are tightly knit. So when one industry succeeds, all the product and service providers of those industries benefit other industries. And that's one of the reasons why we're excited about MMDF and how we can support. A few years ago, CEDF was identified as the lead entity for the delivery of the Look North action plan. And what Look North identified was some key focus areas that was critical to Northern development. Identified Indigenous engagement, strategic infrastructure. But I just want to talk about the first one and the last one, mainly today, is about resource development as well as enterprise support. So enterprise support is small business support or finding all stakeholders of the industry, finding out what their challenges are and helping close those gaps. So for other resource industries, forestry and fishing, we've worked on supply chain issues. We've made sure that any programming that is out there, whether it's federal, provincial, municipal, we want to make sure that those programs are utilized. We've identified capacity training, whether it's to encourage new entrants to the industry or workforce development. We've helped stakeholders connect with financing. So, that squarely aligns with what MMDF is doing and what we have done. So we're definitely excited about that. CEDF has its head office in Thompson, where we currently have Look North staff that could help facilitate applications, as well as in Flin Flon and the Paw. We have over 52 communities that we do engage with. So a lot of this work, especially with COVID, is being done remote, but we can definitely help facilitate with applications. Once we heard about MMDF, we did outreach to local service providers, local contractors, and wanted to really hear from them about what they felt could make them more competitive. How could they secure more business from mines or in the mining industry? We heard that they could use specialized equipment that might take a significant investment. They might need specialized training for their workforce that could, again, take significant investment. And we heard that because it's so specialized, there's not much usage for it outside the mine. So they're a little apprehensive about taking on that risk for fear of not getting a contract. So that's part of the message. And I think that's what MMDF really addresses is de-risking some of that investment for local service providers and keep more of that tendering process in the north. We've had positive conversations with mines about their tendering. How can we involve more local businesses? What services do they need? So I think that all directly supports MMDF. So if anybody, whether it's the mining industry, stakeholders, individuals and applications, we can definitely help people facilitate that process and get them connected with what they need. So I'd also like to share just quickly one of the projects that we are working on. Stop the share for a second. So this is a virtual reality mining project. And with partnership with Northern Manitoba Sector Council, we started working with BitSpace Development, which is a virtual reality developer in Manitoba, Manitoba company. And what we wanted to look at was content that could be produced, that could be used in training, that could be used in career engagement, operations, a wide variety. So these are images that were shot with a 360-degree camera in Hudbay and Flin Flon, as well as Thompson. So for example, I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about the mine, but this doesn't do it justice. This is 360, but it's meant to be viewed with a virtual reality goggles that would immerse somebody in the environment. So this could be used for training. This could be used for executive remote tours, orientation. This could be used for engagement fairs where you could click on this person, learn about their jobs, their roles, their salaries, different things like that. So this is one aspect of the projects that we're working on, this 360. The other component of this project is the actual virtual reality where it would be hazards training. An individual could go in there and simulate an environment, hazardous workspace, and follow proper procedure and protocol and training. So obviously that's cost effective, it's safe, and it engages the workforce. So that's currently in development. So we're definitely excited about any support we can give to Mmdf. Like I said, all industries are tightly knit. We're close to each other in the north. So if we can strengthen service providers, contractors, small business in the north with this fund, we're all about that. So thank you for your time this lunch hour, and I'll hand it back to Jessica.
Thanks, Chris. That was awesome. Love to continue to work with CEDF, supporting the Look North initiative, which I happen to, have a little bit of information in regards to how that was developed as well. And many of you will know that I was one of the co-authors of that as well. So I'm really excited that we're continuing to move things forward. So I just want to thank everyone for taking part. We've got a couple of minutes for some questions. So I thought I would just ask some questions that we'll kind of go through that came through the chat. And just to provide some, to those that are listening, just some context as well. So maybe we'll just start, Jess, and we'll, you and I will have a bit of a discussion for maybe 10 minutes. Can non-mining projects be assisted north of 53?
Yes, absolutely. So our eligibility for projects is open to a range of economic development projects. So certainly if there's something that is not mining related, please give me a shout. We can run by the idea and whether or not it fits with kind of the selection criteria and our key objectives and aligns with the fund in more detail.
Jess, will MMDF support experimental or new techniques such as solution mining? Is that something that MMDF could support in terms of funding?
Yeah, so we did support a project in the Russell area, a potash selective solution mining project. We provided funding for phase 1 of their kind of test production stage of the project. That hasn't started yet. They're still in the process of getting some regulatory approvals, but that's an example of a selective solution mining operation that we saw has some great potential in Manitoba. We've also supported a couple of other projects to invest in new technology for their exploration projects. So New Age Metals, we recently provided some approval for them to lease some new drone equipment for their lithium exploration project. as well as a similar grant that was provided to Snow Lake Resources, also for lithium exploration. So certainly technological advancements and things to make processes more efficient is something that I think the committee really welcomes and sees as a worthy investment.
Agreed. Thomas McLeod put a question in the chat function. Would MMDF support or fund bringing trade education programs into regions to create a local workforce able to work on industry projects?
Yeah, that's a great question, and certainly something that I could see would have tremendous opportunity from a workforce development perspective. For training specific projects, we do collaborate with the province because they do have a range of programs that could provide financial support to that type of thing. So that would be something that we'd have to maybe look a little bit more closely to see if that aligns with MMDF's funding. But certainly I can, that's a great question.
Okay. Do other projects in addition to the two presented supported by MMDF have a shorter term, more direct focus on new mining exploration and development? I think you've kind of touched on that already to a certain extent.
Yeah, we've funded a lot of really exciting exploration projects in northern Manitoba, as well as a couple in southeastern Manitoba. We provided some funding to Calinex for their exploration efforts close to Flin Flon that was showing some promising results as well. We have Rockcliffe, we approved funding for Rockcliffe Metals and Wolfden Resources for their exploration programs to advance those to make more progress and try to get more results from those. So yes, we do provide funding for shorter term, more direct results related to mineral exploration.
Yeah. Jessica Brian Lynn asked a question. He types, the presentation outlined a list of project selection criteria based on community need, economic impact, collaboration and partnerships, local involvement and sustainability. The presenters also noticed that the disbursement of funds is done in installments, are subject to substantiation of performance for the approved project. On that basis, can you please further share guidance on whether project proposals are required to satisfy a minimum number of criteria in order to warrant consideration for funding? Example, would satisfying 2 criteria of 5 listed criteria consider satisfactory? And second, are approved projects are required to fulfill the forecasted performance indicators as a prerequisite to be eligible for the disbursement of funding? So I guess a question just in regards to sort of the funding mechanism that we have in place. Maybe if you want to just, spend a second to talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe I'll start by addressing the selection criteria and how projects are analyzed. So we look at these specific criteria, community need, economic impact, collaboration, et cetera, and look at each project generally, whether or not the project generally meets that. Some projects are stronger in certain areas than others, but that's where the discussion from the application review committee really comes into play. And they consider all of those different factors and weigh that on the different projects. In terms of the project monitoring and fulfilling certain performance metrics, what happens is at the contribution agreement stage, we work with the applicant to kind of develop a program evaluation schedule and what specific metrics tailored to that project we'd like to collect in order to make sure that the project is moving smoothly. So it does depend on the type of project because our scope is broad and we have a range of projects that we're supporting. That's something that's kind of tailored to each project, but certainly number of jobs, investment, that type of thing is something that's considered as performance metrics that we look at.
And Marco asked, do you fund studies and or pilot projects for green hydrogen solutions related to mining operations and transportation?
I think that would be a really interesting opportunity, and certainly contact me because I'd like to talk more. We funded a feasibility study just recently for a green energy project, and we funded a couple of business plans as well. So we're open to different ideas for innovation. So absolutely contact me.
I think one of the things too, and I can say as chair of the Mmdf board, one of the things that I would hope our viewers recognize as well is that we are not a government program. We don't report to government once a year just on the results of what we're doing. But in terms of projects, these are ones that we have the ability to review. And what I loved in Keisha's presentation was, is you can really see how quickly we can take a project from application phase to actually funding an initiative. That we review these projects on a monthly basis. Jessica and her team will review them, take them to the committee that reviews them, which Cal Huntley looks after and his group, and then they go to the board. And the board, for the most part, is on side with the review committee's recommendation. So the speed and the way that we can pivot on these programs is unbelievable. And I think that's one of the real things that I love most about this initiative, is that we're able to see some of those projects. And I think you got a look at some of them today that we've been able to move forward with and have results in such a short time frame. Maybe Jessica, just before we kind of sign off, can maybe talk a little bit about some of the next steps for Mmdf and sort of what people on the line, and if they're interested in learning more about what the application process is and all of those kind of things, where can they go for more information, and what are some of the next things that Mmdf will be working on in the coming months?
Yeah, so you can find all the information for our application process, as well as my contact information and my colleague Matt Venger's contact information online on the Manitoba Chamber of Commerce website. So certainly reach out to me. I love hearing about different projects happening in Northern Manitoba, and it's very exciting. For Mmdf this year, we're just looking to scale up, fund more projects. We'll hopefully be launching a little bit of an awareness campaign to get the word out of the fund and build that engagement. As you can imagine, launching a fund in the middle of a pandemic when there's restrictions on travel up north and in-person presentations is challenging. So certainly building awareness of the fund and building the supports to applicants, of course, will be top of mind this year.
Excellent. Thank you to everyone for taking part. Again, you can go to our website, the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce website. You'll see a pull down on Mmdf, which will have an outline of the project, how you can get a hold of Jessica, some of the projects that we funded to date, the application process, all that information is there. And we're happy to work with other organizations to be able to continue to do that. And CEDF has got a link on their website as well. So even if you go to the CEDF website, they've got a link to Mmdf. So we look forward to working with everyone in Northern Manitoba as we continue to stimulate economic development. And hopefully Jessica and I will be able to get up north sometime soon once this pandemic lets us travel again. So I guess on behalf of the Manitoba Mineral Development Fund Board, I want to thank everyone for taking part today. And we look forward to having great discussions with you and helping to stimulate economic development in Northern Manitoba. Thanks, everyone.